Okay, so there appears to be some shocking news going on. There's a big swing in a very specific kind of poll that's happening for Kamala Harris. As of right now, I believe it's being reported that she's kind of having this general massive swing in all the polls, national polls, state level polls, etc. But the truth of the matter is there's not really much of a swing happening for her. What their media is reporting is like the last one was Trump +5 against Biden, but there's not a swing for Harris. It was just that her polls were already better prior, so it's not like her numbers herself are kind of shifting a lot, if at all. A lot of the national polls are kind of shifting maybe by 1 or 2 points, and same for the swing state polls. So it's not that her numbers are going up a lot, it's just that her numbers were better than Biden, and a lot of that has to do with him being at his low point. Even before the debate, he was in a much, much better position. I think he was even winning in Michigan, for example, and I think he was winning the national poll numbers. So that's a swing, but that swing is probably going to lead to a lot of people projecting her as being able to win more, which means that it's probably going to lead to her being able to win more. The fact that the media is covering it that way, which is good. But there appears to be there's actually something happening. So it appears that her favorability rating is actually exploding right now. So this is our latest ABC/Ipsos poll finds Kamala Harris's favorability has exploded. She's the only net favorable candidate. So it says Harris favorable 43% +8 from the last poll, which is a gigantic boost. Her unfavorable is 42%, which has gone down by 4%. And then Trump here has a favorable of 36%, -4, unfavorable 52%, +1. Vance has a favorable of 24, unfavorable of 39. This sum is very small. It's, 50 plus 13, so 63, right? So there's a lot outstanding, with like 37. So I think on Vance is going to be interesting to see if he gains any sort of real favorable rating and what happens to his unfavorable. If he's already at 39, the unfavorable I think is probably not going to shift down. Will the favorable shift up? I don't know, but he's going to be a big liability, I think, regardless. But so Harris is a net favorable rating in this poll, and Trump's favorable polls look weird. I just looked at kind of an aggregator for them, and his poll numbers aren't looking as bad now. Like, this seems to be a bit of an outlier, I think. But his numbers prior to that, like if you go back a couple months ago, his favorability was much worse. It was in like the -11s and stuff like that. And so I think that it's pretty interesting. I don't know what's going on with Trump's favorables right now. I don't know if Biden dropping out had some impact on that. But there's some interesting stuff we can look at here in terms of Kamala Harris's favorable versus unfavorable. This is like an aggregator here that Real Clear Politics has. Shout out to them for this. But something weird happened. So like back in 2020 and 2021, her numbers were high, and then all of a sudden it just kind of randomly fell off a cliff. I'm not really sure why. And then you have like this weird like divergence where they just diverge from each other. It's super weird. I'm not sure what happened. I know Afghanistan kind of happened around this time, but I don't know if that's what did it. Afghanistan was a huge, bad thing for Biden that really nuked his numbers, and he never really was able to bounce back from that. It kind of just snowballed from there. But you can see that it really goes down here, and then it just really diverges to the point where her unfavorables are above 50%. But to be honest, there's almost impossible that her unfavorables are this high, like 55s and 56s. That doesn't really happen with politicians like this. Like, that's an unbelievable, unfathomably high unfavorable rating. But what you can see is we can kind of expect a higher convergence to a higher number, simply because in the beginning, you can see from this 2020-2021 numbers, she did have a good net favorable rating. So we can kind of expect it. So what you can see is the spread here is like 15, right? Blah, blah. And then now it's starting to drop off a cliff, right? Now it's all the way down to about 9 points. 9.5 is the current spread, right? Just like 3 weeks ago, it was twice that size, right? Almost twice that size, 16.4. So that's a ginormous swing. And so far, this is the only actual polling thing that we've seen that has had a real swing in the aggregate. National polls have not seen it. State level polls have not seen it. It just hasn't happened. But this, however, has actually happened, where actually there is a big swing. And I think it's going to continue to go down. And then I don't know how much the aggregation here is taking into account the old poll numbers. But you can see that if we look at just the recent numbers here, and let me make sure you guys can see this, you can see that there's a real clear boost, right? No pun intended for this website. Because the average spread here is -9.2, but if you look at this, the Ipsos poll I think is in her favor a little bit. It's +1 here. The WSJ poll, and what's cool is I have a couple of injective comparisons I can make here, like 1-to-1 comparisons. But the Wall Street Journal poll has her at a -6, which is less than the -9.2 spread. And then Forbes Harris has her at -5. NY Times Siena has -4. And then as you start to go further and further back, this one's -2 for Marist. But this one's minus 13 for CNN, minus 11 for YouGov, minus 10 for Yahoo, minus 14 for Quinnipiac. But we can see that there's a shift going on here where these are kind of the older numbers, right? 19 through 21, which I think 21 was the official day that the drop happened. I think where Biden dropped out, I think. So I would put it at exactly a week ago, I want to say. So somewhere around there, though. So her numbers are clearly going up. You can see all these consistent double-digit numbers, right? All these consistent double digits. These are actually going up. And so we can compare, like, I think WSJ, I think we have another one. Yes, there's another Wall Street Journal here between 629 and 72. That was 35.58, really awful, horrible. That's minus 23. This one here is, holy crap. So this one's minus 6. So that one is minus 23. Now she's at minus 6. That's a gigantic, gigantic swing, right? Unfathomably massive swing. And I honestly think there's no way her unfavorable is 58. That's impossible. I don't know how that happened. But I think her favorability was probably muted because I don't know why it got muted. I don't know why the favorable tanked. I don't know what happened. I'm not sure what happened to tank her favorable like that. It's very bizarre. But her favorable is heavily muted. It's going to go up as she continues to rise in prominence here to the national stage as the president, right? So we can see a giant jump in the Wall Street Journal one. And then we have a Forbes Harris here. This one shifted as well. It went from minus 12 to minus 5. That's huge, man. This is 7/13 to 7/15. So this is July 13th to 15th. The spread went from minus 12 all the way down to now it's a minus 5. So we're seeing very clear injective changes, not just aggregate changes. We can see trends. We can literally make injective comparisons and look and see what's going on with each of these individual polls, right? The YouGov one has moved slightly. It moved by about 5 is what the spread looks like it changed by. And the Ipsos one obviously was really good for her. And so we have these kinds of spreads that we can see changing. And so this is a really good look for her. Even the CNN one made a big shift because the CNN one in June had it minus 21 and she made it all the way up to minus 13, right? So there's a big shift going on there. And so if she's able to actually keep this up, I think this is a big deal because I think even a couple of points in favorability can be really helpful. I'm a little bit concerned with the direction that Trump's favorables have taken as of recent. It seems a little bit weird in terms of it seems to have gone up in very, very recent times. I don't know if it's because of a Biden dropout. I'm counting on that hopefully to go down. But we can also kind of look at some old numbers to see kind of how she compares right now. So this is actually later than now. It's a month from now, and I'm expecting, I can almost guarantee that her numbers are going to be higher. Even like this +9 that you see in this aggregator, it's going to go way down from this because these more recent ones are going to be better than these older ones. And so it's going to be helpful. Like this 19 and 21 is pretty much worthless at this point. This 1922 is not worth very much. This one was -2 for the Marist poll, right? And so it'll get even better. But these just for some reference. So in late August, early September, Trump had 41% favorable. Joe Biden had 46. Trump had 33 in 2016. So he made a lot of gains in his favorable numbers, which is unfortunate. So I guess he got normalized after his 2016 run. Hillary Clinton had 38, and then she ended at 43. Trump ended at 34. Wow, that's crazy. He was only at 34 at the end. That's nuts. And then I guess Hillary ended at 43. And so I think a couple of points, if you're able to be like actual net favorable, like if she can get to the point of net favorability, I don't know if she's going to make it there. She'll have to eat into this unfavorable number somehow. She'll have to lower it. She can't just kind of boost this. Because there is like some sums here. This only sums to 86, so this tells me there's a lot outstanding, right? There's still a lot remaining out there. And so, yeah, so these kinds of are the pre-election, the final ones had 36 to 61, and then Hillary was 47-52. I think Biden was pretty close to this. I think he was like something like 46-50 or something. I think if she can get to, I think a lower unfavorable would be really helpful as well. So if she can get to the point where her final unfavorable is 50 or less, I think that puts her in a really good position. And we'll have to see how these kind of numbers will continue to converge as time goes on, if just the favorables go up. Because it is possible for the favorables just to go up simply because these sums don't all add up to 100. So there's a lot out there still that don't have an opinion on her. And then she did used to have actual good favorable numbers, so maybe it'll kind of come back and converge backwards into what that was. But this is good for her. This could be a big boost. What kind of things could boost her favorability? I think maybe as focus gets more on Trump, but you can just see on this graph how this is going. And so far, up to date, this is the only thing we've actually seen where Kamala's numbers are actually changing. It's the only place we've actually seen it. The national numbers have not shifted that much from her numbers. They've shifted slightly from Biden, which a little bit of a shift in the national numbers is a big deal because it's like kind of like a large aggregate. And so if you think of it like when people say, oh, well, like it's a big deal, like global warming of like 1.5 degrees versus 2 degrees, for example, is huge. And you'd be like, what? Just 0.5 degrees is nothing. But when you have an average of widely differing numbers, that's actually a big deal. Averages aren't even supposed to be good for widely differing numbers. They're only supposed to be used for that. You should use the median when it happens. That's why they use median income. But yeah, so this is an important update, a big shift in the swing. The spread now is down to 9.5 instead of the previous 16, so a lot, almost halved. And to be honest, I think those are outdated because I think the more recent ones are actually showing much, much better spreads than these ones like the -11, -10, -14. So I think her spread is more, I would say, somewhere probably around like a -5, -6, I think. So I would personally say that she's probably like 3 times. She's cut like into third, like 1/3. She's left with like 1/3 of it, pretty much. I would say is what's more accurate even than what's happening. And so it'd be pretty interesting to see how this kind of continues, and maybe the VP pick impacts this. I don't know, but yeah, let me know your thoughts down below how this can impact things, and we'll see kind of how it goes from there.